Perhaps I was naive to think that the story of legend Kazuma Kiryu actually wrapped up with Yakuza 6, and that his appearance in Yakuza Like a Dragon was simply a treat for longtimers such as myself. But after playing through Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name, I'm convinced that leaving him to age in the shadows wouldn't have been the right move. Although it's a bite-sized story, noticeably shorter than previous entries, it proves that there's still so much more depth to Kiryu's life. From the wild new agent fighting style to the wealth of captivating side activities, on top of the tried and true Yakuza story drama, Gaiden is a tight package that's akin to a greatest hits from the franchise. While it may feel like a retread of previous games at times, it's no worse for wear and still finds ways to surprise me with its straight-faced absurdist humor. It's worth noting that Gaiden acts as a middle chapter that flows into the events of the 2020 RPG and leads directly into the upcoming Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. And so it's tough to talk about this game in a vacuum, but because it's undoubtedly targeted at those who've been on the Yakuza journey all this time, it hit me in my feelings, hard, as I barreled toward the heart-rending conclusion, making it another exceptional entry in the Yakuzaverse. With Kiryu being the leading man, the real-time brawler combat returns, but Gaiden doesn't simply rehash the old system. Agent style adds enough to freshen up fights by giving Kiryu some Bond-esque gadgets to complement the melee finesse of this fighting style. As you progress in the main story, you'll gradually unlock abilities like the drones that swarm enemies, rocket-boosted shoes to jet around bad dudes, and explosive cigarettes to blast away mobs. Kiryu also channels some real Spider-Man energy with the ability to shoot a wire from his watch to lasso enemies, launch them across the screen, or pull in weapons from afar. And it's so satisfying to weave it mid-combo to start juggling enemies as if you're a god-tier Tekken player. He even uses it in web-slinging fashion to swing around in action-packed cutscenes. It's absolute Yakuza nonsense, and I love it. From a combat perspective, Gaiden offers more tools that are genuinely fun to experiment with and work into your approach in the tougher challenges. This includes a parry for unblockable attacks, extreme heat mode for powerful unbreakable combos, and the alternate Yakuza stance for heavier street brawling style. I rarely felt like I was pitted in a battle of attrition, which was often the case in series past. It's not quite as elegant as, say, Lost Judgment, which remains RGG's best iteration of action combat, but Gaiden's mechanics had me looking forward to fighting mobs of 20 plus goons or formidable bosses when the opportunities arose. Over-the-top fisticuffs are only one part of the RGG equation, and the bigger draw for me has always been the storytelling. Having played every entry in the series, it's hard to be surprised by specific plot twists or betrayals, yet I still find myself on the edge of my seat in the story's crucial moments. In series tradition, the high-tension drama is told through powerful voice performances and masterful cinematics for these larger-than-life personalities. Sometimes it's hilarious how the story frames Kiryu's status as an undercover agent named Joryu, working for the Daidoji faction, a shadowy organization that influences Japan from behind the scenes. Especially as he gets roped back into the business of the Tojo clan and Omi alliance while insisting that he's not really Kiryu. It's a bit silly, but speaks to a larger theme about him being conflicted about his life choices, more so than previous games. Gaiden treads through familiar territory where he tries to escape his previous life by disappearing and living off the grid elsewhere in Japan, which we saw a bit of in Yakuza 5 and 6. He's always been the hardened tough guy who rarely lets anything faze him, even on the brink of death or when fighting tooth and nail for those he loves, which is why Gaiden hits so hard. Not because we revisit some of those memories along the way, but because those memories are wielded in such a way to give Kiryu a level of emotional depth we'd never seen before. If you played Yakuza Like a Dragon, you know where the story heads since Gaiden is largely about what he was doing in the background prior to his cameo. But seeing events from Kiryu's perspective adds texture to the bigger picture. This is also the missing piece that explains the reasons behind Kiryu's prominent role in Infinite Wealth, and rather than feeling like a filler chapter, Gaiden showcases and highlights the things that make him human.
そうや。この子ら人質にとったら、俺らの言うことも聞いてくれます？やってみりゃいい。そん時はお前らも渡せも。この世に生まれてきたことを後悔させてやる。
The main story is rather short, and it sometimes goes through the motions of a typical Yakuza story and glosses over aspects that could have used a bit more insight. Gaiden's brevity is a double-edged sword, as to not drag on longer than it needs to and cuts to the chase, but this leaves a few supporting characters and plot beats slightly underdeveloped. However, you get just enough time with the newcomers to understand them and their motivations, and when the main story hits its peaks, it's the good stuff only RGG can pull off. It's about 10 hours to finish barring any side content, but side content is one of the core pillars of the series and rounded out my 22-ish hours with the game. Gaiden mostly takes place in the familiar location of Sotenbori, and it works fine for what the game is going for. But the one new location you get is called the Castle, which is a lavish Vegas-like hub area built inside of an abandoned ship. The neon-soaked strip features casinos for gambling minigames and a luxury clothing store where you can customize Kiryu's outfits. The castle is also key to Gaiden's story, as it's used as a stronghold for a powerful Yakuza family and a place for some wild set-piece battles. The biggest draw in the castle, though, is the Coliseum, an underground fight club made of dozens of combat challenges. It features one-on-one tournaments, battles against waves of menacing men, and a party-based Hell Team Rumble mode. Here you recruit NPCs who are usually goofy-ass dudes who have no business brawling in a cage match, but manage to put up a respectable fight with you. The Coliseum works well because the core combat system is enjoyable, but it also implements management sim elements similar to previous Yakuza minigames. Your team members level up, get stronger, and you can forge stronger bonds by interacting with them at the poolside bar that they hang out at once they're recruited. The hardest battles found in the Platinum Challenges truly test your combat skills and party management, and the rewards and the side stories attached to them are a nice cherry on top. Gaiden features a slew of other minigames from the series past as well, including the pocket circuit races with RC cars and the Cabaret Club as a social sim where you make dialogue choices as you watch real-life models rizz you up in FMV.
上流さんとお話ししてるとずっと楽しくてお仕事してる気分じゃなくなっちゃうな。
It's admittedly pretty jarring since the transition to FMV scenes of hostesses talking to you feels out of place, but once I got past that initial bewilderment, I found the conversations kind of endearing, even though they're rather basic. It's also worth mentioning the new roster of retro games that straight up exist inside Gaiden, like Sega arcade classics and original versions of Master System games. It's a neat perk and further highlights the series' preservationist tradition. Now this wouldn't be a proper Yakuza game without Substories, the comedic and often poignant side quests that bring the city to life and give Kiryu some of his memorable moments. In Gaiden, Substories run through the new character Akame, who runs the Akame network. She's crucial to the main story as someone who works as Kiryu's informant and wields her street rep to keep him connected to the underworld. But she's also a charismatic and energetic Osakan who works behind the scenes to defend and uplift Sotenbori's homeless population. Through the Akame network, you accept requests to help different people in the open world or investigate reports of strange things happening in the streets. And of the 20 plus available, Gaiden's got some bangers. These manage to bring in modern commentary, which makes these stories as hilarious as they are believable. Sometimes they offer nuanced takes on contemporary subjects, and seeing it through the lens of Old Man Kiryu reminds you that he's more thoughtful than he often seems. But the best sub-story I saw had to be one where RGG universes collided for a sort of crossover episode where your favorite characters finally interact with each other. The Akame network is a cleaner way to package sub-stories, but they also come with more substantial rewards like tons of cash and Akame points, both of which are necessary to upgrade Kiryu's gadgets and abilities. It's a bit of an odd progression system, but it pushes you toward completing these requests, which I had no qualms about since sub-stories are worth doing on their own. And the more requests you finish, the better your social standing with Akame becomes. This results in opportunities to hang out with her at the bar and strike up genuinely interesting conversations about her life and motivations while also showcasing Kiryu's ability to be a great friend.
そうやろ? そんな時にはこのお店が居心地ええんや。
Once you wrap up the main story, you get access to the Infinite Wealth demo that's included with Gaiden. And while this is a separate game, it's an exciting part of the whole package. It further emphasizes Gaiden's place as a bridge to the next game, and following its conclusion, I was left as invested in Kiryu's journey as I've ever been. No other game franchise invests this much into a single character's life, so to have seen where he started and everything he's gone through over the course of 8+ games, his perspective at a critical narrative juncture for the series feels warranted. And so there I was, sitting in front of my TV, watching Gaiden's ending, crying like a damn baby over the hardships of a fictional man. Those who've been on this ride over the years will fill me on that. So Gaiden may be a brief stint that leaves the full potential of its supporting cast on the table and often relies on remixing features from the series past, but with new ideas to make combat exciting and a buffet of quality side content, it's some of the most fun I've had with an RGG game. More importantly, I was just happy to be in Kiryu's shoes again for an emotional story and to brace myself for what lies ahead for the beloved series.
満ちる夜にさよなら俺の